procedures. One of which is that when you found buildings which you intend to buy, you have to involve the government valuation for them to give you the value, so that when you are negotiating, it shouldn't be more than that. It should always be at least less. That is a good principle. So we do have the evaluation report, and it was slightly a bit up, but we managed to bring these people in terms of pricing down. And all the relevant procurement procedures through ZPP procedures were followed. Above all, we had to get, of course, Treasury Authority through the ministry to the Treasury that want to acquire this building. This building was not acquired on one time of pay, so we had to go into a payment plan over 2 years. 2 years. So we are paying slowly while we had already occupied it. So that is the issue. Then, Chair, through you again. There was the issue. I think we've done this. I think I'll end here.
Okay. I think we have picked it up from there. Honorable members, is there any other outstanding question before I move to the next? There is in your submission, you talked about a payment that was made in advance by one of your clients, and it's for the Lukanga project, Kafubo project. Yes, I was listening very attentively. Kafubo project, as one of those who paid. I think that is not the only one. There should be another one, I think. Is that the only one?
Yes. That's
okay. Among the reasons to why you felt you had gotten more than what you had budgeted for is because some of your clients paid in advance. That now brings some other accounting questions, and we want to get a clarification because, of course, when you budgeted, you're expecting that as income. Now, what I'm wondering is, when you received this payment in advance, it is for the licensing which covered even future periods. And the rules in finance for incomes, they are supposed to be matched with with the expenses they are related to in whichever year, so to speak. So if this money, not just really for matching purposes, in terms of recognizing this as part of your income, in Kafubu's books, the ones that paid you, they still recognize that money as theirs. It's still their asset. They have paid in advance. They can make a decision to withdraw it if they don't need the service for that period to which it relates. How then did you go ahead and recognize this as part of your income for that particular financial period when it relates to a future period to which you have not yet offered the service? Because the part for the future period is supposed to be recognized as a liability on your side, because it is money belonging to somebody. So it should have effectively been sitting on the liabilities side on your statement of financial position. I'm sure your finance person understands what I'm talking about, because this is money paid in advance, so cannot be recognized as part of your income in that particular financial year. Why is it that this was wholly recognized as income for that particular year, therefore thereby overstating the income above what was budgeted, instead of it being recognized as a liability sitting? Yes, it is in your bank account, but it's not your money. it is still recognized as an asset in Kafubu because they have paid in advance. They will only expense it in their books when we reach that period for consumption of those services you are going to give them. I hope you understand this jargon. I've tried to break it down to smaller units for you to understand. But the finance person understands what I'm talking about. So why was this in this case? Because your response now creates that question. Isn't it, honorable members? I hope you understand what I've talked about.
Chair, my Director of Finance will help me on that one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. In fact, what you have just explained, that's what how we accounted for it. However, when the Auditor General is gathering information, they will gather information in various forms. They would want to see the actual money collected, and then we explain the treatment part. The treatment was in line with accounting standards, but in terms of the actual collections, the actual cash received, this is where the query was that you collected more money and yet you could not even fund the catchments adequately, because this was building up to the next query. So in terms of accounting treatment, it was done as you have explained. But these were just actual collections.
In short, what you are saying,
yes.
What you are saying is that portion related to a future period is recognized as a liability.
Yes, it's in the balance sheet. But this one was, we were matching the bank statements against the actual income collected and comparing.
I would like Auditor General to verify that submission for the consumption of this committee. Otherwise, take it up as a matter we would want to confirm. We move to the next. Honorable.
Thanks, Chair. On the same question, but West Steel, they went ahead and spent this money to purchase two buildings. So now what is the justification? Even when you go to the next query, where they had a deficit on the next query of about 600,000, it was easier for them to use that money to purchase property other than giving money to the other catchment area that needed about 600,000.
629,000.
Yeah, so the priorities for me are misplaced. Thank you, Chair.
So you see, it still raises another question again. If that was the treatment, how then was this money available to be spent on the acquiring of a building? So your responses, you see, there is no correlation. There is no consistency in the flow of, you could have looked for a different reason.
Through the chair, thank you very much. In terms of spending this money, which was collected from Kafubu Water, specifically in that financial year, it was not spent. It's only the portion. If we had all the financial statements, we would be able to prove even the money which was still sitting in the bank account. We still had more than the 1.2 million which was paid in advance. Yes. And every close of the financial year, we have more than what was paid by Kafubu Water specifically.
That waters down then your response of saying whatever we collected over and above the budget was used for procurement of the two buildings. So meaning that that response to this committee amounts to floating the provisions of CAP 12, intentionally misleading the committee. Isn't it, honorable members?
Thank you very much, Chair. Out of the 5.3 million which was collected, only 1.2 million was prepaid by Kafubu Water. And part of the overcollection, which is around 4.1 million, that's what that relates to say that the overcollection was used towards the payment as part of the payment.
So exactly apart from the Kafubu case.
Yes.
What does the other overcollected money relate to? the money collected over and above, what does it relate to? Is it licenses also paid in advance, or is it that you under budgeted, your planning was less than the reality? Because it's easy for you to explain it in that.
That excess collection relates to the odd outstanding debt, which prompted management to enter into payment plan with some clients. According to, in line with revenue recognition, where we only recognize the revenue which is incurred in that year, which is realized in that year. However, I find that in the balance sheet, we also carry outstanding debtors. And those are the activities, that is what led management to entering into payment plans to collect the outstanding debt. And that cumulatively, positively affected our overall collections.
So, Chair, you just want to add through your Chair?
Yes.
From our submission, you realize we have 1.5 million, which was collected from penalty fees. These we don't budget for them. As I earlier said, we can't budget for who break the law. But we had, within that year, collected 1.5 million. This also added to that 5 million.
1.5 million?
1,564,250.
Penalty fees?
Yes, just penalty fees in 2021. Then I also alluded to the fact that during that year, normally the cycle for permits is 5 years. So the bulk of it, when they're expiring, they expire after 5 years. So ideally, when we are budgeting, we look, because these have an option not to renew. So we don't take it like all of them will renew. Some will want to change business course. They want to do other businesses. Others will continue. We mainly look at upcoming clients, and maybe we say, okay, out of these, maybe half will renew when we're doing the projections. Fortunately, most of these people renewed their permits. Again, that contributed to the positive variance.
Probably, Director General, let's rephrase this question. Honorable members, let's shift from the revenue envelope. Let's go to the expenditure envelope. Because that's on the revenue envelope, it's a settled case, of course. You can either underestimate what you expect to receive. But on the expenditure, you have activities drawn. These are the activities we shall spend the money on, which we will raise in this particular period. So here we found ourselves in a situation where you had spent over and above the activities that you had planned. So the explanation now being sought is which activities did you now factor in over and above those that you had planned?
Okay.
The other side is a settled case, because we know the reasons to why you received more money.
My director will come in, but let me just say something. Okay. You come in on the buildings and the like. In terms of activities, honorable members.
Why we are asking that question is we have seen a lamentation here where there was underfunding of 629,444 for catchment area.
Yes, thank you very much. The underfunding was purely due to the collection, because the way our revenue stream is not, it's not constant throughout the year. We have times of the year when a lot of our clients pay, times of the year when they don't pay. In this case, that's why we provided even the evidence, is that we received quite a substantive money in the last quarter, basically in December. That's when most of our clients paid, and we have statements to show that and receipts. So the time they were spending, we could not send this money to catchments, because the activity they were meant for, it will still not take place because it's rain season. We don't do maintenance of hydrometric station during rain season. That was a challenge. We had the money quite all right in December, but we could not transmit it, because then it will be like transmit, then again bring it back. they could not still do that activity. I think that's what caused us, not because there was no money to send by December. We had the money.
Unfortunately, honorable members, the submission by Director General here is not what is he
Chair,
in the submission. Is it?
Chair, it is.
Maybe, Chair, they have an opportunity to amend the action taken.
Yes.
Probably that's what we would suggest.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
so
have an
that
opportunity.
What they are saying, it reflects what is in the report.
Yes, your report does not give us that
Yes.
information. So we are raising questions because we are seeing a situation here where this activity of your catchment area seems to be part of your core business.
Yes.
The core business is not financed. It lacks financing, and it is talked about here. And yet, something that is not your core business gets financed by procuring the buildings with excess funds in the same financial period. Because here the focus is in the financial period under review. So you should have separate explanations for each of the actions that were decided by management. And that's the reason why the committee is asking questions. Right decisions, yes, in as far as you are concerned, but you see they are not talking to each other. So you have a window to, I think, maybe amend your action taken to explain it a little bit further. Otherwise, it remains a query. Honorable members, do you still
take
have...
notes, Chair.
One follow-up question, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Nakoka.
Was this procurement of buildings budgeted for the period under review?
Yes, a clear-cut question.
Yes, that is why those buildings were procured under a hire purchase agreement. So
just a moment, for purpose of the record. The question was asked off record. Kindly switch off for a while. Please repeat the question, Honorable Nakoka.
Thank you, Chair. Was the procurement of the buildings budgeted for in the period under review?
Okay.
Yes, we budgeted for that to be paid over a period of 2 years. So it was not the full amount which was budgeted in one financial year, but over a period of 24 months. Because the payments were done in installments.
No, I think the question is that submission we already appreciated it because we got it from you, that you had planned, you had entered into a payment plan for 2 years. Now, in this particular year, the year which is being considered here, was that portion for the 2-year period included in your budget for that particular year under review?
Yes, the portion paid in that financial year was budgeted for.
Okay. Okay, Honorable Nakoka.
Which means, Chair, the explanation that the excess money was used to procure the building
fails to hold water.
Yeah, shouldn't be appearing here. Yes, because you were then just ordinarily financing your activities. So the excess money, it wouldn't relate to the excess money raised in this period.
Chair, we take note.
General.
We take note of that, and we'll relook at our.
Yes, Honorable Kamchenko.
No, we are not saying just take note. You need to amend the action taken.
You need to
amend. Part of the money was paid to the instruments. Because you see, the way you have casted, already you have been told by the chairperson that was not your money. It's not supposed to be sitting as your surplus. So you need to amend the action taken, which then the Auditor General will have to verify.
On a lighter note, witness, there's too much clever members in this committee, so they'll really catch you on questions on your own submission. So we move to the next question. This one is just very obvious about COVID-19. You alluded to the fact that due to COVID-19, you had that 367,696. I think in your submission, what does that relate to? I was taking notes. Some of the challenges that you had for collection of amounts being owed were due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So what is the status now that COVID-19 is over?
Thank you, Chair. The status is that this amount has since been collected.
Has since been collected.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Honorable members, any other? Honorable Nyemba.
Thank you, Chair. Director General, I just want to find out, or maybe this committee, whether all these hydrometric, which were not working at the time of audit, in all the 9 stations, have they been replaced? And also, you have also mentioned here on community sensitization of the dangers of vandalism. Director General, what other measures have you taken or put into place to secure these national assets? Thank you.
As you respond to that, just for emphasis purposes, we noticed, of course, on page 10, is it? Yes. On page 10, table 5, where you've given, of course, the query which was asked by the Auditor General was the weakness in the management of hydrometric stations. And in response, you have given a table which is showing 9 of those stations and giving the statuses during audit for each one of those 9. And when we look at this submission, there seems to be a big problem. So we really need to know what the current status is on these ones. What's the way forward? You seem to be doing well in terms of financing, or what you really need in order for you to do your work, although we appreciate that you have those challenges. But then why would the status be the way it is at the time of audit? What challenges did you face for these hydrometric stations to be in this state? Do you think with this status we are achieving the objectives of your mandate as an authority? Yes, Honorable Kampiongo.
Thank you so much. Before they got to the issues of the hydrometric issues, I just had one to just take them a little bit on the financial matters. Chair, there was a query on your decision to engage your clients to go into some payment arrangements which were not to attract interest. Now, you are aware that under section 153, subsection 1 and 2A of the WAMA Act states, and I quote, "The authority shall recover any fees or charges due and payable to the authority as provided under section 176 or as may be prescribed. Where any charges or fees prescribed is not paid by any water user, interest shall be payable at a rate to be prescribed by the minister during the period of default, not exceeding the Bank of Zambia base rate and the permit, license or certificate to which the charge of fee relates may be suspended or restricted until the charges or fees and the interest have been paid." Why did you decide to ignore your own law and decide to engage your clients with these payment plans which were not backed by any law? I submit, Chair.
Indeed, for emphasis of that question, I was just about to, it's like there was telepathy between me and Honorable Kampyong. I was just thinking of it, as into, your act is very, it's instructive. I think it's Act number 21, isn't it? Act number 21 of which year is that? 2011. Yes. The Water Resources Management Act number 21 of 2011 is instructive in as far as the interest to be recovered is concerned. So that should form part of your operations in terms of operationalizing this. It should be embedded in your policies as WOMA. But instead, you decided to adopt a policy which was in contravention of the provisions of the Act, in as far as this interest is concerned. So that's the reason to why this committee is now questioning to say, oh, yes, we appreciate your submission which you made, that you entered into payment plans. That's the reason why you are not seeing interest charged. But those payment plans are not backed by law. You have your legal mind here seated, whom you should have consulted. And the payment plan here has got no legal backing. It's a good idea because you recover the money. But there is a loss in between here because that money should have been received at the time when it was due, in order for it to finance these activities, which ended up suffering because somebody did not pay it in good time. So why was this situation the way it is? You may need to give an answer to the committee. I think that is the spirit of Honorable Kampyongo's question.
Thank you very much, honorable members. We fully recognize the provision of the law, and what you have pointed out is very correct. I would like to state the fact that 2021 was a year which brought its own unique operation environment, the environment under which we are operating because of this pandemic. When you check with our database, a lot of businesses actually wound up. They could not even pay a single pen. Not to subtract from the fact that we have the mandate to waiver that provision. But I think under the circumstances, we were trying to do what we can within those challenges which these entities were facing, just to get what we can. Because we indeed understood the burden financially they were going through, as I've said. So hence, we thought maybe by just doing this administrative way of ensuring that we recover what is outstanding, at least we'd be able to recover. There is no another reason, because that provision still stands, and I think I want to report to the committee that beyond that, we have enforced the issue of defaulters paying the interest once they default. Honorable members, I think that is what I can say on this matter. If you allow me, I'll proceed to the other question, then maybe I can get.
Yes, please. Please proceed.
The other issue is, I think, from the honorable member there regarding the hydrometric stations.
Honorable Mazoka, just hold the tab. Oh, you wanted to clarify on the same? Okay, just wait for him to complete.
Yes.
Okay.
The status, I think, on the hydrometric stations, it was actually verified by our auditors from the ministry, and I think that report is available. At verification, they found that 20 out of the 25 which were cited were working, and we are saying that the 5 actually technically they are not attainable, so we've been working around to decommission them, survey to get other sites which we can cite these. The issue of how these stations operate, actually, basically, I want to give an example of a car. A car from the showroom, you get it, you can still have a breakdown first time you're driving it. That's how these mechanical things are. So we have a situation where, regardless of their remoteness, we may have a team going there today. They work on it, they change the battery. 2 days down the line, the fuse is not working and things. It's really a costly thing. You cannot guarantee, because maintenance can only be quarterly. But there is no guarantee that when you maintain it, it will continue working until the other quarter. It can break within the week. Sometimes, even when they're on the way, we tell our officers, go back, because this thing you worked on, again, has stopped transmitting. So what have we done to go around this? I think, as far as we know, we have found that that technology is not appropriate for us. So regarding the new stations which we are putting up, we are now going to use new technology. Very simple, very cost-effective use of probes. And most of the time, it has two, the way these are designed is that it stores the information and it can transmit. So merely that it's not transmitting does not mean it's not working. It's just that the mode of collection of information has changed. You have to go there physically and get the information. Honorable Member, thank you.
Okay, Honorable Mazoka had the follow-up question.
Thank you, Chair. On the same hydrometric stations, one of the reasons given is that, the station was vandalized. Now I'm wondering, if this station is properly secured. If not, why? Thank you, Chair.
Please provide that.
Thank you.
Answer.
Okay. Can I go ahead, Chair?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. The siting of these stations varies from place to place. You find that where you have an appropriate site, you can site it within a school premises or a health center. In that case, security is guaranteed because just by mayor being in that premise, at least you have additional security. But in certain instances, it is a facility which sits right along the stream or river, away from where the community stay. So even the person who goes to get the readings, he just goes there to get at that time and goes back. The only thing we can do is to put a fence, but that does not prevent our community members. They are very inquisitive. They literally cut some of these probes just to see what it is. You find they have even thrown it. You know that sometimes they even get it. They don't know the use for it, but they're just inquisitive. Hence, we feel sensitization, so they know that there is no copper there, there is no what, something they feel they can use, so that they know that this is purely just for getting data. So, at the same time, it's not attainable for us to put someone there 24/7. I think we don't have that capacity to employ 2 people, one during the day, during the just stationed there. Because it's basic infrastructure that we're talking about. It's not housed in a building. It's basically like a weather station, which we're talking about. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Kampiongo, then Honorable Onakoko.
Chair, now I can understand why you haven't even included the aspect of security on your action taken. You are saying this is a very critical infrastructure for you. And without it, you won't have data that you need to make appropriate decisions regarding these water bodies. Wouldn't you consider a security arrangement of getting, just the way you get people to go and read from the community? Wouldn't you consider engaging the community? Take, for example, what is done in the GMAs, where, the game rangers have got no capacity to be present all the time. But the communities have been quite helpful. So in this vein, because you see, in the sensitization is one thing, but someone would just go and pick this thing and try to like you are saying, people wanting to know what is in there, And in trying to make money, someone will just go and drag it and start looking for for components that could be of market value for sale, which becomes vandalism. Wouldn't you put premium on the securing of these installations by engaging the community and work on some arrangement? Because at the end of the day, when it is damaged, you still have to spend to replace the same installation. And while you are responding on that, Chair, if you can permit me, I would just take them back to the issue of abstraction meters. We understand you had given us an explanation of why certain sub-catchment areas were not metered, and especially in Lusemfa River, in the Rwango catchment. You also submitted that you had done an audit internally. Why wasn't that report availed to the Auditor General's officer when they came to do the audit before they flagged that off? Why wasn't that internal audit report you did by yourselves availed to the external auditor during the time of audit? I thank you, Chairperson.
As you wind up, I think we are last question, so that you just package them together, and that will be really the last question from us. You had some marine equipment, and some of it was transferred to you by the ministry. What I want to know is these pieces of equipment. Of course, I know that they include some motorboats, isn't it? And what I want to know is, do you have beneficial ownership to these pieces of equipment? If so, how is that demonstrated in your records? Because if I've seen in your responses here, there are pieces, they are divided into some pieces. Some pieces, it's like, no, they are owned by the ministry or something like that. So now, it raised issues. The auditor raised issues of insurance. It's your responsibility to insure these pieces of equipment. Then some of them, it looks like they are obsolete. They are not in tandem with the current technology. So why haven't you written them off your books of accounts on that basis? On obsolescence, you know what to do when there is obsolescence. So what is the status? Who owns these assets? Is it WOMA? That's why I asked that first question, to say, do you have beneficial ownership resting with you? Or it is still the ministry? Because for them to sit on your books of accounts, you must have that ownership. And if you have the ownership, then you are responsible for everything, the carrying costs of owning these assets. Okay. Yes, Honorable Kampiongo has got some.
Maybe rider to your submission, Chair. In your submission, you have said you have since insured 7 equipments, marine equipment, which is operational. We would like to know why it had to take the Auditor General to flag this off for you to see the need to insure this equipment. Because at the time of audit, you didn't avail proof of you having insured as you are showing us here. Because here, we were not even supposed to be the ones to be taught. You should have availed this information to the Auditor General when they were auditing you. I thank you, Chairperson.
Yes, please, Honorable Nakoka.
I can throw in this rider on what Honorable Kampiongo queried, the issue of failure to meter abstraction points. In your submission, you said that the action taken is that you are reviewing the water permit conditions to include metering of abstraction point. And you said the cause of that failure was that the condition attached to the permit did not include, did not provide for metered abstraction at the time. All right? Now, when one looks at the letters, because you've indicated that there's an attachment, Appendix 3, when one just reads the very first letter that you have included here, it's addressed, this particular one, to a company in Chongwe, and I'm not going to read the whole first paragraph. But your last statement says that, not that these already form part of the water permit conditions. And what you are referring to there is to the requirement to submit monthly returns, as well as installation of bulk water metering devices. So can you confirm whether this requirement to include bulk water metering devices is a new condition or it has always been there? And Chair, I'll just add a request. Looking at what WAMA situation is, maybe to get a clearer picture, we will need to have a look at their full sets of financial statements in order to see where the money is actually going. Because an entity cannot have got surplus collections and then have got challenges on their core mandate. Where is the money actually being spent? And that we can only assess if we look at their financial statements. One wants to escape the suspicion that there is a lot of focus on administrative expenditure, because the decision to buy a building when you still have got key issues in terms of your operating mandate is one that would think it should not have come at the point that it came in your operations. So to get the picture, we need to look at your financial statements in full.
Okay. Director General, you may respond to those questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, honorable members, for those questions. I'll start with the security issue. I want to agree with you the fact that indeed we need to put a premium on this infrastructure, considering the products which we get from this infrastructure and what it means in terms of managing the water resources. The people have engaged to take readings actually from the community. And that has helped, notwithstanding the vandalism which is there. It's not as rampant as it used to be, because these people are coming from the community and they continue engaging their own, literally, in a way, addressing this matter of security. What I meant when I said we cannot afford is, other than this person, is to put like an individual there physically who should be manning these stations. We do not have, I would love to do that, but at the moment we do not have the financial capacity to do that, because I will have over 380 extra people whom we have to pay, because we have to multiply by 2. One can only man in the day during, so it's an issue of, we try to do it cost effectively by ensuring that the same people we've employed can try to give that comfort in terms of the communities to provide that security we need. Maybe in future when we have means, definitely it would be something we can look at in terms of putting full-time security to ensure that it is secured. The issue of abstraction meters was never a mandatory issue where we're coming from. Neither was it brought out because of the audit exercise which took place. And maybe I can also quickly even answer to the question which came from Honorable Kampiongo, why we did not share the report. In fact, it's that report which our Auditor General queried us on. So that report was from us. We availed it to them. and then they started querying us. So we did not hide that report. Actually, the queries you see are coming from our own report. So so this issue of abstraction was recognized by management and the board way before this. So we find that those who had their permits running, not yet expired, didn't have this condition. In the process when this was recognized, the new permits, we started giving in, including this as a condition. And the others, we said they will be expiring soon. So at renewal, we shall include this because it has to be mandatory. So going forward, it's now mandatory. So this is what maybe brings in that gray area. And I think the report issue I've answered. The issue of marine equipment, who owns it? Because when WAMA was established, for some time, books of accounts were being managed by the ministry. It didn't have its own accounting unit. Up until 2017, the books of accounts were still being managed by the ministry. Then beyond that, now accounts took charge, WAMA took charge of the accounting. So in record, it was cited that there are 29 boats which WAMA has not insured. But what we wanted to put on record is that out of that 29, 19 were now, those are the ones which were handed over to WAMA. 10 have remained with the ministry, they belong to the ministry. So now we are accounting for that 19, which are sitting in our books. We fully own them as it is now. Then again, there was a question, did you have to wait for the auditors for us to insure? Honorable member, not necessarily. We have been insuring this, except at the time the auditors came, we had not insured during that year, which had expired. And we delayed in insuring these boats because we are saying, look, why should we incur the cost for this equipment when we want to get rid of them, dispose of them, because we no longer need them, so that we buy appropriate equipment. So let's embark on getting the necessary approvals through the board, through first Works and Supply to come and assess them, then the Treasury, so that we just dispose them. Then we get that money, buy the boats which we are able to use and insure them. So why insure something which we are about to dispose? So in the process, we had that audit. Obviously, we had not insured them, which we accept. But that is what caused us not insuring them. It was not deliberate. Because what we saw is that they were just sitting. They were not being used. So even the risk is maybe from theft. But otherwise, we're already in the process of trying to get rid of them.
Honorable members, we have had a very long engagement with WAMA. The submission looked very slim, but I think it was necessary for us to get the nitty-gritties in the operations of WAMA, especially the fact that we have been engaging with CUs, commercial utilities in the water sector, and the ministry itself has been here every day. We are winding up actually this meeting of the committee today on this note. We only have one more sitting tomorrow, and then we do our report. And then I think later on we'll be engaging the Secretary of the Treasury concerning these problems which we have been talking about, because he's the main financier into these institutions. So it's a well arranged a piece of work for the committee. We can only thank you, Acting Permanent Secretary and Director General WAMA and your staff, for giving those valuable submissions to this committee, because they help us in terms of doing our, not just doing our report, but for the purposes of improving these institutions of government, which are so important and affect the lives of the people we represent. Ours is to provide oversight on the work of the executive as Parliament, and that's the reason to why, through the report of the Auditor General, we get to know what is happening there and provide these checks and balances. At the beginning, we conferred you with the immunity that you needed in order for you to freely submit, which you have done, and I'm sure you enjoyed the immunity. At this point in time, before I withdraw the immunity, I would give you another last opportunity to say your last sentiments to the committee, and then I will remove the blanket.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you, Honorable Members of Parliament, for having accorded us an opportunity to be heard and respond to the audit queries that were raised in the Auditor General's report. I also wish to indicate that we did enjoy the interaction between the committee and ourselves. We've learned a lot. Moving forward, we'll get back to our drawing board, review, make the necessary amendments, and take heed of the advice. We've taken heed, Chairperson. I'm not sure at what point, because I think one member had requested that the committee would like to have a look at the financial statements for the Water Resources Management Authority. Maybe we may need further guidance on that one. It wasn't agreed, considering that this is the last meeting that we are having with you, Chairperson. Otherwise, once again, thank you very much. I submit.
The life of this committee extends all the way up to around, I think, June, July. But of course, we'll need this as soon as possible. I think this meeting is a budget meeting, which runs up to close to the end of December. There will be a legislative meeting that Parliament will reconvene around February. But the committee will still have a lot of work that they're doing, with interaction with other maybe parastatal bodies. And then they will have a window where they will have local tours and international tours. And then in the last meeting for this Parliament, the committee will be reporting on its whatever activities they have done in this session of Parliament. So in our reporting, we'll definitely need such kind of things we ask for. And here, our permanent witness, the Auditor General, will need to follow up and maybe get a verification of the certain issues we said verify. And of course, our clerking officer here will also engage with whoever is a contact person at WOMA and get to know this. So we need them actually like now. To answer your question, we actually need them because they'll help us form the basis of our report. Okay, on that note, Madam Controller, Acting Permanent Secretary, I would like to withdraw the immunity that was conferred on you and your team. Whatever you will now say beyond this point, you are on your own and is not covered by Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia, the National Assembly Powers and Privileges Amendment Act number 13 of 2016. Thank you very much.
human rights and governance. So we are going to proceed with the introductions first. We have some honorable members who are operating virtually. So they will be participating online. So we'll start with the introductions from yourselves, then ourselves.
Thank you very much, Chair. My name's Humphrey Mwemba. I am the Acting Director for the Legal Aid Board.
My name's Sandra Chibuye Lukwesa. I'm the Acting Deputy Director for Legal Aid Board.
Acting?
Deputy Director.
Okay. Honorable members, those who are virtually participating, they will join us. Okay.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Good morning, Legal Aid. My name is Singombe Edgar, a member of Parliament for the West constituency in Colombo. You're welcome.
Thank
you.
Those physically present.
Good morning, Legal Aid. My name is Chinkuri Monti, MP for Kanyamba. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, MP.
Good morning, Legal Aid. I'm Lamek Hamwata, Member of Parliament for Pemba Conference. We welcome you to this committee.
Thank you, Honorable MP.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Council, Lieutenant Council, rather, good morning. My name is Honorable George Kangwa Chisanga, Member of Parliament for Lukasha constituency, and a member of this committee. You are very welcome.
Thank you so very much, Honorable.
My name is Achinga Mewtu, representing the people of Kalab Central, and sitting in for the substantive chairperson who is here to join us. Secretariat.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Zulu from the Office of the Clerk. I'm here with my colleague giving us ICT support. Nachirima is her name.
In relation to powers and privileges of the National Assembly of Zambia, Cap 12, it gives you an extension of immunity. And that immunity against any prosecution and the usage of the submission you are going to submit today. So that is the same immunity which members of Parliament utilize when they are debating issues in the House. However, that same Cap 12 can work against you if it is found that you deliberately misled this committee during the interaction. But the purpose is not to prosecute, but to ensure that there's immunity, a leveled ground with the stakeholders interacting with the committee. So having mentioned this, I would like to state that we are in receipt of a submission from Legal Aid Board. So we shall have 20 minutes to drive us through the submission. Thereafter, if there will be observations and questions arising from the presentation, then we will delve into that. So meanwhile, we'll wait for you to lead us into the presentation.
Thank you very much. I'll start, and my colleague, if there will be need, will make additional comments. We first of all want to just thank you for the opportunity for us to give our views over the bills currently under debate. We've looked at the ramification in the passing of the Criminal Code bill into law, and one of what we we noted was that Zambia as a country would then be compliant with the second optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights on the abolishment of the death penalty. And then we also noted that we have not ratified this international instrument as a country. So Zambia would effectively be abolishing the death penalty through subsidiary registration. But then what we noted is that there is also a provision in the Constitution under Article 12 which states that no person shall be deprived of his life intentionally except in execution of the sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense under the law in force in Zambia of which he has been convicted. So the impact of this is that there should be also probably some consideration for amending Article 12, which is under Part 3, which was not, which is one of those that were not considered during the referendum, the failed referendum. So even if there is a passing of this act, probably without consideration of a change in this article, it may not have the effect because subsequently the Constitution is more in terms of effect on the law if you should go by that. So there will definitely be need to also consider the provisions under Article 12 sub Article 1 of the Constitution. We also noted under 3.0 that the proposed amendments would achieve the intended objective of the sentence for defamation of the president and abolishing the offense of defamation of foreign princes, but this would only be offenses committed after the bills are passed into law, as there is no retrospective application of the law. So it could be that at a point when the bill is passed and there are people facing these laws, they will have to be affected by the punishment before the institution of this law into application. So there is a change, of course, from a felony to a misdemeanor and giving a sentence of 2 years, unlike the provision as it was initially. Then we also noted that the High Court would now have wide discretion to sentence persons convicted of murder, aggravated robbery with a firearm, and treason to sentences ranging from 0 to life imprisonment, looking at the circumstances of each case. This is because Section 26, subsection 2 of the Penal Code of the Laws of Zambia provides that a person liable to imprisonment for life or any other period may be sentenced for any shorter term. Now, by amending Section 175, subsection 1 of the Criminal Procedure Code in the manner contained in the Criminal Procedure Code Amendment Bill, the discretion of the courts to order compensation for the long list of offenses currently punishable by life imprisonment will be taken away from the courts. This is so as such offenses will now fall within that which is exempted from ordering compensation. Because the caption is except where the court orders life imprisonment. So it means it takes away the discretion by the court to actually order compensation. Like I would take the example of manslaughter, where the courts could actually give compensation to the family of the deceased. Now it means that has been taken away from the court's powers because it is except. So it's like they have replaced death with life imprisonment without making certain other considerations on the impact that it would have on the offenses that initially attracted compensation. So that should be considered. It's one of the impacts that it will have, which may be a negative impact once the law is passed. So we propose that the order compensation, we propose that discretion to order compensation should be left as is the only restrict for convictions on murder, aggravated robbery, and treason. Then by amending Section 305, subsection 1 of the Criminal Procedure Code in the manner contained in the Criminal Procedure Code Amendment Bill, the life imprisonment sentences will now be among the cases where a certificate of sentence will need to be forwarded to the President. This in effect appears to fall outside the intentions of the proposed bill. So the proposition is that the requirement of the certificate of sentencing being sent to the executive president be dropped altogether, as it may be redundant. So because only death sentences were actually being taken to the president so that the president could certify. Now, because the death part has just been replaced with life imprisonment, it means that all those cases falling under this particular sentence now will have to flood the president's desk, and then they will have no effect because there is apparently no life that is under threat for the presidential consideration. So we thought it should be considered, and one of the impacts is that it will affect every other sentence apart from the death sentence. Now, by amending the 5th schedule made to section 16 of the Criminal Procedure Code in the manner contained in the Criminal Procedure Code Amendment Bill, the court's discretion of suspending a sentence for offenses currently punishable by imprisonment for life will also be taken away. So this in effect appears to fall outside equally the intention of the proposed bill. So we propose that the restriction be maintained only for murder, aggravated robbery with a firearm, and treason. We also noted under 8.0 that it must be noted that while abolishing the death penalty, obviously there are certain other considerations where other people have not acceded or accepted this vice, and we as Zambia, though we have accepted, maybe working against some values in certain other societies worldwide. We concluded by stating that the proposed amendments would achieve the intended objective of abolishing the death sentence penalty. It would also reduce the sentence for defamation of the president and abolish the offense of defamation of foreign princes. However, in the case of abolishing the death penalty, the mere replacement of the word death with imprisonment for life has wider ramifications which appear to be outside the intended aims of the bill, particularly the limitation of the court's discretion to order compensation for offenses currently punishable by imprisonment for life, and as could be guided by the list under the schedule of those offenses punishable by imprisonment for life. We submit.
Thank you for that presentation. I will now request the honorable members, those who have observations and seeking clarification, to proceed. Yes, Honorable Amata.
Thank you, Chair. If I've gotten the witnesses so clearly, there is also a proposal that if we tamper with the penal code, we also need to tamper with the Constitution. That's Article 12, sub-Article 1. Don't you think Council will be removing the safe valve? In my view, leaving this Article 12 in the Constitution active, it means you have left a safe valve. Because we as human beings, we may not be sure as to whether there will be no need in the near future to go back to death penalty. And I'm sure you are aware how costly it is when you are to tamper with the Constitution. Don't you think if we go that route, it will be too costly for the country? Other than the route that the government have taken to just tamper with the penal code, where when need arises, depending on the generation that time, they can also take the same route that we have taken now to tamper with the penal code and reactivate the death penalty. I submit, Chair.
You can comment over that one.
Thank you so very much. I note the couching of the article in question, which says no person shall be deprived of his life intentionally except in execution of the sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense under the law in force in Zambia of which he has been convicted. I bear in mind the huge expense that would be drawn if we were to embark in changing this article. And I'm glad to mention that in view of how it has been coached, it doesn't necessarily mention the issues to do with a death sentence. It's a direct impact, so that if the court does not pronounce itself that it can convict somebody and sentence them to death, then it will have very little effect as an article under the Constitution on the operations of the provisions under the Penal Code, which will have replaced. So I am of a considered view that I think it's not very harmful to leave this particular article the way it is, especially in line with what you have explained on what may be the circumstances after a decade or so. But otherwise, even in the couching itself, it is not necessarily restricting courts to, because it gives an option where death has been ordered. Now, if the Constitution, if the Penal Code says that instead it will be life, it means no death will be ordered, and this article in effect will remain with very little impact on the execution of sentences. So I think it's not very lethal to leave it the way it is. Yes, but just to mention that obviously the Supreme Law then will still remain having more impact on what might happen. So if a court, for instance, but then by law it would not be allowed to sentence anyone to death, because the law would have provided for the sentence to be undertaken. So.
Thank you,
Honorable Chinkuli.
Thank you so much. I think on the same vein, in line with what my colleague has asked, I'm trying to look at the Constitution the way it's couched. There's a proviso there where death can only be pronounced if there's a law that is, supporting that. Now, in this instance, we're trying to kill that law to the point that even if it were to be pronounced, it won't find where it was said. So I don't think and bearing in mind that that's my own opinion, I feel the way the Constitution was couched, it was sustainable, where we would not want, people to, in the event there are issues to do with the death penalties, people should again go back to amend the Constitution and amending the Bill of Rights, what it takes. So from time and again, and you agree with me that each government that comes in, it was to look at the Constitution, each one. So, and looking at the economy of the country, that may not sit well. So looking at us killing the root, or where the stool where this is, sitting, is not there. Do you think it's really necessary for us to go and amend the Constitution as submitted?
Thank you so very much, Honorable Member of Parliament. Just like I mentioned, I think I still agree with the fact that the impact that this article gives in terms of the amendments that are being proposed will not affect the operations of any sentences pronounced by the courts. So I think the route of amending would only be an option if it becomes so necessary. But as it sits now, it is still very proper that we can proceed to operate with the CPC and the Penal Code in the manner with the proposed amendments without affecting the Article 12. Of course, the impact that it has is what is not of a huge consequence to our operations in courts. Maybe she wanted to add something.
So my stance is that it will not, it's an impact, quite all right, that we can feel, but it will not be such that it will hamper or hinge the operations of courts in terms of what sentences and yes, so it will still sit following, like you have mentioned, the law that is being amended is what authorizes the article that comes up in the Constitution. Thank you.
She can proceed if she wanted to chip in.
Thank you, Chair. On top of what the Director has mentioned, this provision, of course, will not have very much direct impact because the law would have been amended, but we will still have this provision reflecting in the Supreme Law, mentioning some form of death penalty. So it's still sustainable, but we still have this Supreme Law leaving the possibility of a death penalty still existing. So looking at it, for example, in the international community, where you have amended the law, but you still have this Supreme Law, which still reflects tenets of the death penalty. That is where the issue could have fallen.
Yes, Honorable Chisang.
Chair, thank you. the answers given now have, I think, thrown me into a state of confusion. We want to achieve something. We have come to a settled conclusion of the cruel nature in which society perceives the death penalty. And the exercise that we are engaging in is intended to ensure that we kill this. We kill this draconian law, for lack of a better term, once and for all. Your submission in writing speaks to the need for us not to abandon attention to Article 12, that if an appropriate time comes, in order for us to achieve the purpose that we've set ourselves for ourselves now, we would then have to touch on the Bill of Rights. It would appear to me we are dealing with a head-and-hand situation. What comes first? Do we amend the statutes and leave a clause in the Constitution that leaves a pronouncement? Because remember, the Bill of Rights is nothing more than just a pronouncement. So we are pronouncing that we still recognize that the court would have powers to mete out a death penalty, even when we amend the law itself that deals with the death penalty by abolishing it. Aren't we going to leave this aren't we going to cause more confusion by leaving it in the Constitution and dealing with it only in the subsidiary legislation, for lack of a better term?
Can proceed.
The proviso to that article, as the honourable member had referred to earlier, leaves room for a law regarding this article to be this article should be supported by some law. Now, this law which supports this article is what is going to be amended. Yes, the provision, the article will still be maintained like that. But because the article is saying there should be a law which is stating, giving the court the powers to do this, there will be no law left for the court to use this power. So the court will not have anything allowing them to give a death penalty. That is why we had, in our submission, we put it to highlight it, to say we are bringing forward positive and negative ramifications. So this is some form of highlighting the fact that even if there's no law telling the court to pass a death penalty, there's still something remaining somewhere. Even if, as it is remaining, no court can use it because there's no law supporting the court to use it. It could only be maybe problematic when it comes to maybe the international community recognizing that there's this remaining hanging. But as it is, there's no court who can pass a death penalty if this bill is passed into law.
Chair, hence my question. Why then leave it? Why should we leave a proviso in a Bill of Rights? I wanted to approach this slightly from an academic perspective. Is it even necessary to leave in the Bill of Rights, a directive that cannot be implemented at all? it's either we create, it's either we abolish them at the same time, or we leave the status quo as it is right now for the law to have efficacy. Because a law that doesn't have efficacy is not a law at all. So why should we leave it in the Bill of Rights?
You can proceed.
Chair, I remember the honorable member, Mr. Tsanga, mentioning that there is a possibility that we could re-look at the provisions under the articles in the Bill of Rights at an appropriate stage. I say so because considering the effect, it will be of no meaning to leave the article in existence when the law backing it up has been amended, so that it will be hanging without any support, and that means that at some point when funds or resources permit, there is need to revisit the whole. I think there are more other issues that we need to consider in the Bill of Rights apart from that, this mere Article 12 sub Article 1. So in future, I think when resources and of course that is the core critical issue, it's resources when they permit, this law must be revisited so that it doesn't just congest the constitution, because as it stands it will have no meaning to remain in the constitution. But as it is critical that we consider probably these bills in isolation, and that they can still stand with the force of law that they intend to give. We could still operate with them being passed and then dealing with the provision that we suggested under Article 12, sub-Article 1, to be dealt with at an appropriate time. I submit.
Chair.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to know from the witnesses whether it does matter on because in the amendment there's somewhere where life imprisonment and the imprisonment for life is interchanged. So I wanted to know from the witness whether these two words actually matter if they are interchanged in terms of law. Thank you, Chair.
You can respond.
Thank you so very much, through the Chair. I've heard pronouncements such as I sentence you to imprisonment for life or to life, or for life, then I sentence you to life imprisonment. The reflection on the warrant to remain the same, with the same effect at prison for consideration on how they should treat you. So I think there has been that an interchange of those words, but in effect the meaning still remains the same. It is one and the same thing that they are referring to. I think it's just the English. Thank you.
I wanted to, the first paragraph, Zambia is a country would be compliant and is second optional protocol to the international. What would be the position? How would the world view Zambia now, the international world, after this program of amendment and the law is made? What would be the impression, the picture created? How will the world consider Zambia? I can respond.
Thank you. That is the point I was trying to get to say the community will be on one hand very happy that Zambia has amended the death penalty in the law itself. But then again, there will be questions regarding the article that will still be remaining in the Constitution, because it's like you have one leg on this side and the other leg on the other side. So there's nothing stopping another amendment to the laws to bring back the death penalty, because now there's already an article in the Constitution, which is the supreme law, supporting that. I submit.
So even as she has answered, I think there are a lot of positive attributes associated with the abolishment of the death sentence, and there have been cries in most parts of the world for this sentence to be abolished on the basis of these critical human rights that support this particular law. So I think in terms of this community and the world, I think we are attracting a positive picture in terms of consideration, because we are slowly achieving what the world has been vying for. If you go by the provisions of the protocol that we have stated in this. So as we belong to some of these unified efforts, we are also trying now to live into what the proposals have been. So there is a very positive effect that it will have once we pass this law. I submit.
Yes, Honorable Chisanga.
Thank you, Chair. Moving the witnesses to the other part of this ambition, that the issue to deal with defamation of a president. I saw that you addressed the committee only to the positives of the reduction of the sentence for defamation of a president. I just wanted to give us more clarification, because first the general call has been the call for the nation to abolish the actual offense of defamation of a president. And looking at the first bill, the one that seeks to amend the penal code, it specifically addresses itself to the need to amend the Principal Act in Section 69 by deleting the whole offense. When it comes to then dealing with I'll refer you specifically to what it says. If you look at the bill that seeks to amend the penal code, it says in Section 11 of the bill, it talks about the Principal Act is amended by the repeal of Section 69. My understanding is that we are actually intending to get rid of the whole offense as currently provided for in Section 69. But curiously, when it comes to the bill that seeks to amend the CPC, it talks about under Section 8 in its attempt to amend the first schedule of the Principal Act. It says in regard to the defamation of president that under Division 1, Section 69 in the second and third and fourth column, by the deletion of the words defamation of a president, DTO, and imprisonment for the term of 2 years. I think that even that is trying to abolish defamation of a president and also to dispense with the penalties of imprisonment for 2 years. So I don't know whether you understand that what we intend to do is actually to abolish the offense itself, or are we just lightening the sentence? Because I thought I heard you in your submission saying, did I pick it up? To 8.0. Further, it's noted that for abolition death penalty, no, this is a death penalty. 3.0. The proposed amendment would achieve the intended objective of reducing the sentence for defamation of a president and abolishing the offense of defamation of foreign princes, but this would only be for offenses committed after the bills have been passed. I thought the bill is also intending to abolish the offense of defamation of a president. Am I wrong to understand this draft?
Going by what you read, I think that could be the intention to abolish, because if they have to state it in that clear way, then it is the intention that ultimately we have to do away with the entire offense. But I think it's a necessary evil that we still have to maintain it and probably just look at the sentence that should be changed. So I say so because there is a kind of protection that should lie with the office of the president, so that you cannot allow every person to speak illy, because it is bringing the whole country into disrepute. So there is need to actually curb certain vices relating to that office, so that there should be a protection. The only thing is the operation of the law must be treated with a lot of care, because sometimes it's subject to abuse, and that is, I think, what was intended. So it's not really to do away with the offense itself, because the offense exists. So dealing away with it is like also saying there is no murder. Well, you are talking about an offense that exists, and then you want to remove it out of the law. So it's necessary that some people should be curtailed from intentionally defaming the president. So the law, the bill, if it is proposing the way it sits, like you read, Honorable Member, there must be a grill to it, so that it should not completely repeal or abolish the law existing, but try to make amends, so that even in its practical operation, it should be something that will sit well and guide on who should be actually apprehended or arrested for defamation of president, and the procedure that should be followed thereafter, with a penalty that is reasonable.
So consistent, sorry, Chair, can I, consistent with what you have said, you would tell this committee that you as legal aid are not agreeable to the proposed to repeal Section 89 in its entirety.
Yes, yes.
Right. What would you say if, brother, are you able to advise this committee if you don't think that the laws currently that we have would be adequate to protect the office of a president, even if we abolished or repealed Section 69 of the Penal Code?
Well, there are certain laws that we definitely have that protect office, like you have mentioned, but most of them actually go to defamation, because I believe that it's not an individual that we are protecting, but the office of the president, so that whoever uses abusive language in a manner meant to bring into contempt or disrepute the name of the president, then they should be dealt with by that particular law. So I may say certain words that may not amount to defamation, but will be treated as insulting the president, using abusive language against the president, but there is that which might just be meant for defamation. So I think abolishing it in total to align it with other protective laws may not serve the purpose, because other people will have, obviously, the lawyers will have will come up with certain bendings to say this actually doesn't qualify the ingredients of this particular. So you have defamation, which comes with its own ingredients, and the people looking at that law will have to meet the criteria for them to actually give that. So, and then also this aspect of the good thing is at least it remains to be a misdemeanor. If it is amended, I'll consider it, but then it will have reduced from being a felony. So there will be also an aspect of the circumstances under which that offense is committed for the court to consider which particular sentence, because it only says up to 2 years imprisonment. So I think it is necessary to leave it the way it is, and not the way it is, to leave it existing in the penal code without abolishing it completely. That is my opinion. Thank you.
The acting, you wanted to?
Yes, I also wanted to mention that most of the provisions in the other laws that have to protect the president, most of them are felonies. But this is bringing it to a misdemeanor, and it's capturing a wide variety that might not be captured by those ingredients in those felonies. So this one is going to be wide, but the punishment is, the offense itself is a misdemeanor, unlike being a felony.
Yes, Honorable Martin, wanted to.
Yes, Chair. I want to seek if the council can give advice on the death penalty, of course, migrating from death penalty to life imprisonment. The other witnesses who submitted indicated that those who have been condemned to life imprisonment, basically when they are at that facility, they are not actually productive. They are just kept being fed just like that. Now that we actually increasing the numbers, in as much as, of course, the number have been increasing, bearing in mind that there has been no execution. What are your recommendations, especially that, of course, there is also a cost, a huge cost. You have maybe a 20-year young man who have been committed to life imprisonment, and this young man will live for another maybe 50 years. So you are just there as a country, a government, just feeding these people. No, they are not productive. Would you advise what other way that the country can minimize the cost on these people who have been condemned to life imprisonment? Thank you.
Okay. The situation mostly is that the ones condemned to death, I think ideally it was, you don't have to go through that pain. The punishment should come instantly. So those are supposed to be fed well. You shouldn't die before the actual execution. You shouldn't die before the actual pronouncement of your execution. So they make sure that those don't wake, they sit very well. They have, that's why at maximum it's upstairs there, and they are in white. Okay, so the pain must come when you are now just actually being taken for murder. But otherwise, you should feel very well. So that's why they get worried when you see that a person sentenced to death is actually unwell. They make sure they take them and they should be well, because they shouldn't die naturally. So for lifers, there have been categories of lifers that have been allowed a way out or even perform some chores within so that they are productive, especially for those that have served. Maybe you would hear them saying, I've been here for 21 years, I've been here, I'm on life imprisonment. But they are even entrusted some duties. Some have become teachers, some have done something that they've learned some skills and they are using them, and they can be trusted to go out and teach on certain things. But I think, like your question was, the recommendations, because we must utilize these services of parole very well, because I deal with people. Sometimes I get instructions on how they murdered or how they found themselves in certain offenses. So if you you hear their story, you would see that this was a one-off kind of activity that you wouldn't label somebody to be a perpetual offender. I think the punishment should reflect that somebody has changed, so that the issues to do with recommendations from the prison authorities in terms of the behavior change of a particular individual to suit maybe the issues of pardon, to come out on parole, or they should be very, very eminent, so that we get as many people out as possible. Others have been sentenced to life for defilement. The circumstances would be that they defiled a person. And you see, I'm speaking as defense counsel, sorry. Some of the convictions we actually don't believe, because you could find that this person was not represented, and probably they just mishandled their case. They couldn't have been convicted in the first place. So if you sentence a person probably who was technically taken into prison and given life, wouldn't there be a time for reflection and the consideration of them actually coming out quickly on parole, so that we lessen on the numbers, depending on we all have the circumstances under which people are convicted, and the record of their proceedings are also taken to prisons. They actually have those records. So if there could be a committee that will sit so intensively in considering the circumstances of the cases, so that even if a pronouncement is made that somebody should be given life, other factors should come in so that after a bit of some sentence served, a person reformed, a person corrected should be given chance to come out on these occasions when we have the president pardoning. So I think there should be a very robust team of those that will recommend so that we lessen on the number of unproductive people who will just be consuming our resources from prison while it's doing nothing. So that also goes to what is currently being undertaken, like diversion programs for what sentences should be given to which people, so that congestion is really lessened, and the encouragement by courts to consider circumstances in giving sentences other than maybe looking at your face and thinking you are ugly, you should go to prison. And for a theft of something that they even recovered, they still give you 4 years imprisonment. So those also congest and impact on the numbers of people that we have in prison. So I think it is something that we should very much consider. Thank you.
Any other observation? Those who are online? There appear to be none. I'd like to thank you for having made yourself available to the committee and also making the submission. The committee will make use of the submission to add to the job of producing a report which should be tabled having listened to the submission. I would like to remove the immunity so that you can proceed with your daily duties to serve the Zambians, other than the immunity being carried. So, wishing you a very good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.